Ole Miss gets a commit. No, not that one, but one just the same. And a player has popped up on social media. Should we be paying more attention than we are? This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran of the media and the national media with Yahoo Sports. I also did a stint at WSMV in Nashville as well. I hope everybody is having a good day. Today on the show, we'll talk about another recruit has popped up the same way that Princely Emmanuel broke last week. So this is another five-star recruit. It's broke similar ways. Is it legit? Should we pay attention? We talk about that. As I mentioned, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and YouTube. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. And a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. I do hope everybody is having a good time, and this is a fantastic Tuesday as we get closer to the early signing day period, which is tomorrow. We will be live streaming Tuesday night and Wednesday night, so be sticking around for that as well. We're going to hang out. We'll have Shark Tank Live. I think Brad Logan is scheduled to join us tonight, and then we'll also do a reaction to signing day at the end of the day as well. I hope everybody is doing well. You know, it's a really interesting situation, right? So Princely Emmanuel, the news of him broke a certain way. And it was a social media like. It was something really similar. And that led to a whole bunch of people that I happen to have contacts with in the Florida area that reached out to me. Now, I do not have those same contacts in Southern California. So it's not going to go the same direction that it went there, but this started the exact same way. And it started with the social media post. And this is the social media post. It was from Jackson Dart on Instagram, and this is a Domani Jackson like to a Jackson Dart Instagram post. Now, Domani Jackson was the class of 2022, so the only way that he knew Jackson Dart would have been through recruiting visits. They wouldn't have played at the same time together, but they were probably aware and they knew who they were from the recruiting visits. So Jackson Dart announces that Domani Jackson likes it. So Domani Jackson, is he interested in Ole Miss? Is this a legit thing that we should pay attention to? Well, a little bit later in the day, it got picked up and seen by Twitter on X or Twitter or whatever it's called. And he said, hey, we should look out for this. And then the Grove Collective comes back and says, you're good. And that right there is like, okay, my antenna goes up even a little bit farther. So let's talk a little bit about this prospect. He was a former, I guess he is a five-star prospect, but he's the class of 2022. He was ranked in the top 10 nationally. The final three for Domani Jackson from Mater Dei in Santa Ana, California was USC, Alabama, and Michigan. So another thing that stacks this on top of that, he was recruited to Alabama. He officialed to Alabama on November 6th of that year. I guess that would be 2021 before he went to USC. And the defensive coordinator at Alabama, Pete Golding, our good old Portal Pete, is in the house. So this is a player that would track athletically to start at the field position at corner. He is somebody that you can put out there and do some man coverage stuff. His athleticism is really good. He was a 98 rated recruit. He was nearly a 100. This is one of the better athletic recruits that have come out of the portal in quite a while. So between Domani Jackson and Walter Nolan, you can see what Ole Miss is trying to put together through the transfer portal. Good football player. Now, USC has not been a very good defense. Now, a lot of that was that Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley, because the defense kind of looked the same as it did Oklahoma at USC, but we'll see exactly what happens there. Domani Jackson, a really, really good football player. And there's not really any way to get around that. So if you look at the Ole Miss defensively, who they've brought in. Now we've talked about Princely and Monmielen. We've talked about Tyler Barron. We talked about us waiting on Walter Nolan. We've talked about Chris Paul. We've talked about Camarion McDonald. You look in the transfer portal. We're going to talk in the next segment about DeCamerion Richardson from Mississippi State, who just committed to Ole Miss. Taz Nicholson is committed. Lewis Moore is committed. You can see Ole Miss rebuilding the defense in the same way that they did a year ago. Last year, they built it off G5 players. This year, they're kind of building it off Power 5 major league starters. And that kind of intrigues me. When you add him to Taz Nicholson and all that, you can kind of see the totality of the picture. I think DeCamerion Richardson is a slot corner, real similar to what John Saunders did last season. He's going to play on the inside. He's a tackling machine. I think his junior year, or whatever it was with these extra COVID years, his junior year, he was second or third on the team in tackles. And we'll go into what he graded out extremely well, but he grades out in a way that I think he would be a inside cornerback. He wouldn't be asked to be the guy. He would be asked to be the third guy. And whenever you take somebody that graded out fourth in the SEC, if you have the ability to do that, that's a win. Regardless, it's a win. Because after the Georgia game last year, and you talk about Domani Jackson potentially, you talk about Taz Nicholson, one of the things that ate them up a little bit was the fact that Ole Miss could not play man coverage against Georgia. That was part of the problem with what was going on. Ole Miss had to play zone defense behind there because they could not match up one-on-one. And that's not a slight towards DeAndre Prince. That's not a slight towards Amari Walton. That's just a story of players that were more athletically limited. So in this portal season, Pete Golding is going out trying to find super athletes. Everybody that you talk to about Taz Nicholson is like, this dude is an athlete. If you talk about DeCamerion Richardson, they're talking, he is an athlete. And I guarantee you, if you ask about Domani Jackson, they would say exactly the same thing. Really good football player. And we'll see if this is something that we need to pay attention to. This is somebody that I would recruit. I mean, all of the signs are there. If you look at his top three coming out of high school, Alabama and Pete Golding was firmly on it. He has a prior relationship likely with Jackson Dart, considering he was probably on campus at about the same time. And Jackson Dart was the same swag level as a true freshman as he is right now. So people would have gravitated to him. It makes all the sense. It checks all the boxes that Ole Miss and the Grove Collective and everybody are going to try and close this deal and make it happen after the dead period ends. It's probably something that's going to take a little time, because starting at midnight last night, they did go into that dead period, and that's going to go on just past New Year's, just past the All-Star games, I do believe. So we'll see exactly how they go. Domani Jackson is definitely somebody Ole Miss fans should probably pay attention to. Now, Michigan's going to be calling as well. You have that Pete Golding relationship and the Alabama relationship as well. People are going to be big game hunting with this 5-star cornerback, former top 5 play in the country. Absolutely worth looking into as well. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. We're just getting started. Ole Miss just got a commitment for one of the highest graded corners in the SEC last year. We tell you about that next. But right now, I need to tell you that passion, drive, and passion, what brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You will not regret it. All right. Ole Miss did get a commitment, but no, it wasn't the commitment that everybody's waiting on. It was not a Walter Nolan thing, at least as of the time I recorded this. I am recording this at about 6 o'clock Monday night. So if anything happens after that, obviously I won't know. But you have DeCamerion Richardson, a cornerback from Mississippi State, and I joke all the time about how DeCamerion Richardson got called up. DeCamerion is a 6'2", 195-pound corner. He kind of tracks in a way with the physicality of the player. I think he matches up with a more of an athletic version of what John Saunders was as a way to take the defense and get it up to the next level. You look at his grades by year, according to PFF, he graded out 86.4, which is good enough for like 4th or 5th in the SEC. The entire SEC is a cornerback graded in 2023. Good player. Okay. They were on a really bad team. Really good player. And whenever you look at him, I don't think it's a situation to where Ole Miss is going to ask him in the Revis Island mode. He's not coming in to be the lockdown guy. He's not coming in to be the number one corner, I don't think. I honestly think Ole Miss is probably going to try and recruit Domani Jackson for that express purpose. But this one, I think that slot corner position, that number 3 corner, is going to be a big deal for DeCamerion Richardson. Like I said, good football player. He hustles a lot. He's big. He's physical. He finished 3rd his junior year on the team in tackles. And they played that Jolie Dunn style Zach Arnett defense where it was a 3-man front, but it was essentially a 3-3 stack. And they did very aggressive stuff. They did a lot of double A gap blitz with the 2 linebackers there. Cornerbacks got put out on an island at times, but the games that Mississippi State played well, he played well. He turned out he was a catalyst, even more than Bookie Watson and Jet Johnson. He was a catalyst for that defense because whenever he went, the defense went, and now you have a situation where he's going to line up and try and do the same thing for Ole Miss in 2024. We talked yesterday. Ole Miss is recruiting to the playoff. They're coming for your starters, and Portal Pete is coming for your starters because Ole Miss is recruiting for the playoffs. If you are not going to be a playoff team, and Ole Miss is an option for you, if you find out the way that goes, and just, everybody knows the way that works is players talk and it gets through and stuff like that. And that's how interest is known one way or another. And because players can talk. And it's a situation where DeCamerion said, hey, I can come there for 1 year and play for all the marbles, or I can stay here at Mississippi State and not. It's going to be a rebuild year. It's obviously going to be a rebuild year in Starkville. Or I can go to LSU. They are in the playoff conversation. They are not nearly in the playoff conversation like Ole Miss is. And we're going to talk about the power rankings going into next year. And if you're looking at a top 4 teams making the playoffs, right now, it's like Alabama, Texas, Georgia, then Ole Miss. Those are the top 4 going into 2024. And then it's like Missouri and LSU and Oklahoma, that tier. It's like, okay, DeCamerion did not want to go to that tier. He wanted to actually go really play potentially for the playoff. And Ole Miss got him. They wowed him on the visit. Ole Miss in the portal is something else right now, man. They are absolutely something else and something to behold. Really, really good football player. Now, we'll talk about the power rankings in the next segment, but the portal as a whole, Ole Miss probably needs, like I said, they're not looking for starters in the portal, but they're looking for contributors on the offensive line. And I think once they get this defense situated, I guess if Walter Nolan would go ahead and pull the trigger and commit to Ole Miss and everything, yes, you have players like Domani Jackson that Ole Miss is potentially going to recruit, but I think Ole Miss would be more systematic in recruiting the offensive line in January. I think January is the offensive line period. That's just the way it is. And so we'll see exactly how that goes. Now, there's going to be people that say, well, they need this and they need that. But I think the two pieces that they need offensively, I do think they need a couple of at least depth pieces on the offensive line, especially with Jerquan Scott being committed already. And you have Jaden Williams that could be a potential left tackle. So maybe you're just getting depth on the offensive line. You don't want a situation like Georgia where the drop-off is that precipitous whenever Williams and Micah Pettis went out, especially against one of the better teams that you're going to play. I think at tight end, I think Ole Miss needs a tight end. I like Hudson Wolf as a backup. I like Caden Prieskorn as the starter. I think Caden Prieskorn's a heck of a football player. Hudson Wolf, his health concerns means I would like a third. And I like Javante Connor. I think his ceiling is really, really high. But he's in that show me mode at the moment. I need to see it. So we'll see what happens there. And I think that Ole Miss, like I said, with Domani Jackson, Ole Miss is looking for that lockdown super corner, even with Chris Graves and even with Taz Nicholson and even with DeCamerion Richardson. Ole Miss is trying to get deeper in the cornerback room as we speak at the moment. There's not a whole lot that you can say negative about, and not a whole lot that you can't be excited about going to even the spring game. I'm expecting 15 to 20,000 people at the spring game. I'm not expecting a sellout or anything like that. But the anticipation for this team going into the fall is major. And I think that season tickets are going to sell out super quick. And, you know, home slate or not, you're going to hear people complain about it. But the team that you're going to want to watch this season is not the opponent of Ole Miss. It's actually going to be Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to be worth the price of admission this year. So we'll see exactly what's up with that. But DeCamerion Richardson, cornerback, Mississippi State, has been called up to Ole Miss, and I do think he will be a slot-type corner, real similar to the role that John Saunders played in year one. Lots of good pieces being added to Ole Miss's lineup at the moment. Still more to come on Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Media talking heads are already in off-season mode, and they're talking about 2024 and where Ole Miss stacks up. Where is it? Stick around next. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day, and shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Be part of history. All right, it's going to be really interesting in 2024. Get ready for 9 months of conversation about power rankings for 2024, the 12-team playoff for 2024, all of that. Get ready for all of that, where Ole Miss stands in that, where they live. And this is going to give everybody an early look of what it sees. This is from Saturday Down South. And they put out their really too early SEC 2024 power rankings. And this is where it goes. Number one is Alabama with Jalen Milroe, who is probably going to be the Heisman favorite going into next season. Number two, Texas Longhorns with Quinn Ewers. It's weird seeing Texas on this list, by the way. With Quinn Ewers coming back, Texas is going to be fine. Georgia down at number 3. Carson Beck is coming back. That was announced yesterday. Number 4, Ole Miss. Jackson Dart coming back. All of the transfer portal work that Ole Miss is dealing with. Then you have number 5, Missouri. They've absolutely figured out how to operate in this NIL space. Number 6, LSU. Number 7, Oklahoma. Number 8, Tennessee. Number 9, Texas A&M. Number 10, Auburn. Number 11, UK. Number 12, Florida. Number 13, South Carolina. Number 14, Mississippi State. Number 15, Arkansas. Number 16, Vanderbilt. Really interesting stuff, because in most years when Ole Miss played Vanderbilt, you could count on the fact that you were playing against the number 16th ranked team. But Ole Miss is playing against 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So that's 5 of their 8 SEC games. They play against number 7 and number 6. So that's 7 of their 8 SEC games. And none of them are preseason ranked above in the power rankings where Ole Miss is. The one that is ranked right next to Ole Miss, number 3, in the Georgia Bulldogs. And that game is happening inside Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. I guarantee you that's going to be an ABC game. It's going to be a night game. Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler, the whole 9 yards. Let's get it on. But these power rankings are interesting. And this is also explaining why people are transferring to Ole Miss. DeCamerion Richardson, Mississippi State's number 14. Chris Paul, Arkansas, number 15. Juice Wells, South Carolina, number 13. Princely Uman-Mielen, Florida, number 12. Tyler Barron, number 8. Tamarion McDonald, number 8. It is not hard to see why people are making this leap. They're talking about Ole Miss spending a ton of money. I don't think that's what it is. Anytime you hear a dollar amount, by the way, half or 3/4 cut that down. That's not the real number that's out there. It's like a fish story where it comes out. But you can see exactly why Ole Miss is having the success it is in the transfer portal. Ole Miss is swimming in very heady waters in a situation where they need the talent. Alabama doesn't need to go heavy into the transfer portal going into next season. Texas and Georgia the same way. You have Ole Miss and Missouri that are in position where they need to make some hay, and they are. Really interesting stuff. I'm pretty fired up. Anybody that is not excited about Ole Miss football right now, I honestly think you might not be able to get excited, and you should probably seek a medical professional. It just kind of is what it is, but we'll see exactly how it goes. In the transfer portal rankings, Ole Miss is currently 1 in the country, and number 2 is Colorado, and they're just there because they just signed everybody. They're going to end up signing 30 kids in the transfer portal this year as well. Ole Miss has signed 9, but they're pretty ahead of Colorado currently, and we're still waiting on Walter Nolan. Lane Kiffin absolutely is the portal king at the moment. Ole Miss has finished like 2nd 2 years ago, 3rd last year, and they're firmly number 1 this season. And when you look at the players that could end up in Oxford, this might be a situation real similar to, honestly, like LeBron taking his talents to South Beach, if everybody remembers that. Is Lane Kiffin and Pete Golding kind of creating a super team? Which, if you think about a super team, the first super team was probably the second run of the Chicago Bulls. Is that what's happening? Is that the move? Is that the play? Because you have Ole Miss that is a legitimate national championship contender, and they are stacking defensively, player on top of player on top of player. Offensively, I think they're doing the same thing, but they feel pretty good about where they are. And they should feel pretty good about where they are. Year 3, Jackson Dart, with these weapons he has, Ole Miss is probably going to have the top wide receiver room in the country and add the top defensive line room in the country if Walter Nolan commits. Quarterback that is on the list for Heisman trophies this early in the season. He's in that short list, one might say. The best running back potentially in college football in Quinshon Judkins. He's very, very serviceable backup that at times looked better because of his stylistic difference from Quinshawn and Ulysses Bentley. We get to see if he's coming back. And then you have Jam Griffin and you have Kedrick Riscano that has a chance to be very, very good. Like I said, the two need areas that I want to see Ole Miss address in January, and just realize this transfer portal, you have about 45 days left of names that can pop up in the transfer portal. It's not over. When Walter Nolan decides, if he decides to go to Ole Miss, this isn't over. It's just pausing for a little bit. And the second part of January, it's going to be really going as well. Get fired up, Ole Miss fans. Get fired up. And obviously, we will keep an eye on the Walter Nolan situation. If he commits, we are going to talk about it on one of the shows, and we'll see exactly how that goes. More players to come, though. That's the crazy thing. There are more players to come. They're not done. This is a real thing. Everybody that is like, what is Ole Miss doing? It's only going to get worse. And I am here for it. I am so here for it. And I just can't wait to see exactly how this goes. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. Every dayers, we have Peach Bowl and all the recruiting talk that you will ever need. You can check in all week for that. For your second listen, check out Locked On. And they've launched their first ever national sports streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering each and every league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. For those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there right now. Hotty toddy, folks.